Mikudo Weme, Henumi. Greetings, family. This is the Hosu Gala Bagan Bobby the First. The Ganlodo Hosu, or paramount monarch of the Monarchy of Ganlodo, which is a Maroon Kilombo here in North America. Speaking of that, we're very excited to introduce to you our new book called The Kilombo Paradigm. The Kilombo Paradigm. And actually, the complete title is The Kilombo Paradigm, Maroon Sovereignty Through Vodun Culture. And we're quite excited to introduce this new title to you. It is probably, in the scheme of things, our greatest work so far as the contribution to not only the integrity of African spiritual traditions, but from the perspective of lifting them to another level of taking us towards real liberation and sovereignty. So the Kilombo paradigm is a paradigm based on the Kilombo. What is a paradigm? A paradigm is a model, a pattern for something, a template, if you will. So we are presenting this template from primarily the Vodun perspective, but an inter-African perspective as well in the 270 pages of this book. This book is dynamic in that the word dynamic meaning, it touches on a whole lot of things that we need to be doing with our culture. There are at least one couple that tried maybe about 30 years ago to address this, and we respect their work. It's a new time now, and we have approached this from a whole new African perspective, much more dynamic perspective, with much respect to the work that has been done before us. So we know what a paradigm is. What is Kilombo? Kilombo, usually spelled Quilombo from the Portuguese perspective, is a corruption of the Congo word Kilombo. And the Kilombo was basically meant encampment. That's what that word means in Kikongo. The Kilombos were places of sovereign space where escaped formerly captive Africans, so-called enslaved Africans, created free communities based on African culture. And as long as they kept that culture as the base of the Kilombo, and then under that, the family as the central shrine, they lasted. When they lost center of what the Kilombo is supposed to be about and started to integrate foreign elements, this is when the Kilombos collapsed. Even the great Palmares down in Brazil, which was one of the largest and longest lasting Kilombos. So we have what is called the Kilombo paradigm. The people that lived in Kilombos were Maroons, called Maroons. Those are the ones that consciously decided to make a decision that first of all, they never submitted to the rule or will of the Yovo, of the European. And when they got a chance, they escaped and they created their own sovereign spaces. They grew their own food. They worshiped their own deities. They didn't worship black versions of white deities. They didn't worship Buddha, Krishna, Vishnu, or any of that, as long as they were a whole people. So the Kilombo is peopled by Maroons. But the Kilombo must first start in the head, in the mind. And so our book is about getting our minds in the Kilombo mode. And for those that are already in the Kilombo Maroon mode, what to do now. What to do now. So, like in Fon, the word for paradigm is betinme, and that literally means translation of the world. Translation of the word. That's how deep our languages go. So when we use that word, when we say paradigm, we're talking about how to deal with the whole world, ourselves, our enemies, our associates, the creator, the deities, the ancestors, and various other spirits. Translation of the word, Betin me. So, in this book, we introduce over 120 African Fon and Yoruba words. About 90% of them are Fon, to help us explain our paradigm and to really break down what we're really saying. Most of our books that even tried to touch on anything like this back in, let's say, the 90s, they didn't have the language. And so they still were slaves to the language of a foreign paradigm, even though their minds were part of a different paradigm. We go into the realm of proper protocol of African relationships between each other, relationships with the enemy, with associates, the roles of economics and power. And of course, we delve deeply into the political and spiritual aspect of what the Kilombo paradigm gives us. We thoroughly explore what personal and family mission statements are and the importance of having them to keep us as cohesive families and in marriages and families in general. A mission statement is very, very important to have when dealing with problems, because even before you go to the oracle, you can go and refer back to your mission statement and say, hey, look, this is what we agreed upon. This is what you said your mission was in relation to the culture. This is what you said your mission was in relation to our marriage. This is what you said your mission was in relation to the family and lineage. So it can get pretty complicated. And it's kind of like a holy text, personal holy text, if you will. So it is obviously that the Kilombo paradigm itself is meant to be a way of life. And the book is only so much you could put in the book, but the book is breaking down how to put all of that together. We're not just talking about, this book is much different from anything we've done before. And of course, if that's true, then, it's pretty much going to be different from anything else that's out there. Because we're dealing with a lot of politics, with the spirituality, with the economics, with power. A lot of people have been taught to run away from power or to shun it as if it's some kind of holy title, something good to do, like we've said in the past, a lot of the RBG and a lot of other people feel like they're going to fund the revolution, whatever that may be, by selling incense. But the Kilombo paradigm teaches us to consider and build wealth, proper wealth. Consider the aesthetic of what we do. You can look good while doing good, but be doing good while looking good also, so it's a way of life. And at its core, it's about family and family development, and family as the first and primary shrine. You've heard us say that in many videos, but we really delve into what we've been talking about over the years in this book. All things spread from the family. So if the Kilombo paradigm is used properly, and we've took a lot of time writing on this book and putting together what works and what has not worked over the years. If it's done properly, studied properly, and carried out properly, we're talking about developing families and institutions, first families, that within two generations, viable families and institutions, amply equipped to gain the ultimate goal of the Kilombo paradigm. Not Kilombo paradigm just as a book, but the paradigm is as a way of life. And that ultimate goal is sovereignty. Sovereign space in the mind, sovereign space physically where you live, sovereign space in the way you worship or serve the deity. Some people might have a problem with the word worship. You know what we're talking about. Because if we use our African languages, then we won't have to use Whitey's words, and you won't have to have so many problems with certain Whitey words, because we won't be using them. So we want to consider that also when we want to criticize particular words that we're using, and when we say that within ourselves also. Once again, sovereignty must first start in the mind, though, So we deal with how to. We deal with the fact in the Kilombo paradigm that we're not, it's not about numbers. It's about quality. It's not quantity, it's quality. Your Ashe, the heaviest star in the system is what the Dogon call the Po. It's the smallest but heaviest, most dense star. You know, its power comes from its density, how it's packed. So when we get together as smaller numbers, we have to make sure that we have the proper Ashe. So in the paradigm, we talk about security. Kilombo paradigm, we talk about security from the spiritual and the physical perspective. You know, having that inner core as that core that that keeps everything together, to keep the eye on the outer core. We talk about how to have the Kilombo itself set up in a way that it is protected from within, like any enemy that may have slipped within, and is also protected from without, from the enemy without. We talk about in the paradigm, you know, how, and we've said this for years and years, you know, no European came and snatched up anybody from Africa. They might have tried that once or twice when they came in the 1440s, and they most of them didn't make it back to Portugal. They didn't make it off African soil. This was a concerted effort, but they could only do this through the internal rot and weakness of the African. So we talk about, very similar to how Chancellor Williams talks about in Destruction of Black Civilization, what happened to ancient Tamaray with the interracial foolishness, and how that internal rot allowed them to fall eventually. We talk about in detail, in thorough detail, in the Kilombo paradigm, how this happened to the West Africans, really all over Africa, you know, and what this means, what this implicates, and how that is perpetuating even here in America amongst those in the Itankale, which is the so-called diaspora, who practice African traditions and whatnot, but they still have that internal rot within them. It is that the Kilombo paradigm wishes to wash away. It is that the Kilombo paradigm and the Kilombo, if you will, movement will not allow within its sacred halls in any form or fashion. That is what brought down Oyo. That is what brought down Dahomey. That is what brought down Tamaray. That is what brought down the Akan Federation, Tatawakaka, you know. So we're not concerned with numbers. We're concerned with the quality, the ashe of it, you know, of the few five versus the 500 that'll make it, you know, you feel like you're looking good. You got 500 people, you know, coming to your festival or whatnot. But where's the ashe going? Not one of those prayers as you know, rituals or anything that has gone towards the real enemy, you know. And we are talking about the enemy within and the enemy without, you know. So the Kilombo paradigm is set to take us to that next level, which is true re-Africanization, true family development, true nation building, into the realm of sovereignty. You know, people say, you know, people hear that word, they think it's too much work, and we beg to differ. We have the example, sadly enough, from a non-African perspective, Theodore Herschel. Theodore Herschel was a Jewish nationalist who lived in the 19th century, right? 19th through early 20th century. And in 1898, he made a declaration first to his wife. He said that from now on, we are speaking nothing but Hebrew in this household, Jewish, Yiddish, whatever because up until that point, the Jews weren't really speaking Jewish languages, you know, any derivative thereof. So he began this thing where they would gradually only speak Jewish, right? And he said, within 50 years, if my plan works how I see it working, within 50 years, we will have a Jewish state. That was 1898. Look it up and you will see in 1948, there came the Jewish Zionist state, because he very much was a Zionist. That's not the point. The point is that through his nationalism, his quiet nationalism, He didn't have to get on no soapbox and gather up a lot of people. The people that were supposed to come, they were going to come because that language was put out there for one reason. And those that were serious, they were that serious. They was like, you know what? Yeah, we need to learn a Jewish language, you know, and speak it in our households. And they did that. And they got their state. And they've gone on to do other stuff that is very questionable. But it started with the language. But it started with the idea that this man knew that they can obtain sovereignty. So with the Kilombo paradigm in mind, and talking about the Kilombo paradigm and the fact that we use so much language, African language, throughout the book, we totally understand where Herschel was coming from. And that is what we're trying to do. And that's what we will do. But we know our numbers will be small. The Kilombo paradigm, Maroon sovereignty through Vodun culture, can be purchased at the link you see on this page that you're watching this blog from. If you're watching this link, this video from, if you're watching this video from another source or whatever, please go to Kilombo Restoration and Healing website, and the web address is restorationhealing.com. Restorationhealing.com. Go to the publications page, and you will see the Kilombo paradigm, the book cover and everything in the description, and you will be able to purchase it. So we pray that we've described the book in detail enough to you that you will have a good idea of if this is something you want to not only purchase as a book, but even become part of as a movement. We're not soliciting anyone. Once again, we're about the quality versus the quantity. But at the same time, this is a book that is not really meant to be just a book. None of our books are like that. All of our books are functional. But this book is meant for people to get off their butts and say, you know what? I've been saying I'm African. Because when you read that book, you be honest with you. You'll find out that you probably, there's a big part of you that is not as African as you thought. And if you're anything like we are, when we were studying for over the past almost 30 years now, and when we realized we weren't as African as we thought, for instance, when we were wearing Korean dashikis, but we thought we was wearing real dashikis, when we realized that we didn't try to justify it and get defensive, we were like, this ain't no African, this is not African dashiki. Let's get real African clothing, So this is going to shake up a lot of people. It's going to shake people. This book is going to shake a lot of people up that are, diehard, about, Africa and all of this. The individualism that we see in the tradition, that practitioners are engaging, displaying rather, that is thoroughly addressed in the book also. So it's going to shake up a lot of people. What we just ask that, hey, it can't be personal because we don't know you. You're reading the book. We probably don't know you. We didn't write this book with certain individuals in mind. We wrote this with African sovereignty in mind. So once again, you can purchase the book here on the site, restorationhealing.com. That's restorationhealing, restorationhealing.com. And read it thoroughly, share it with your family. We're pretty sure that there are parts of that book that even the Christian members of your family will be able to identify with. If you take the Vodun nomenclature away from it, they should be able to identify with it. That being said, we pray that your families are all safe during this time of disaster with these two amazing hurricanes hitting landfall. We pray that any family that you have in those areas are safe, that they come out even stronger after these things pass over. And they do pass over. Odigba.